Hi,
Peggy.
Peggy.
It's
Hello.
Naga. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
Hello, Babaji.
Hi.
Jay.
Oh, wow. I got shivers.
Peggy,
Oh,
we're
yeah, beautiful.
happy that you're here right now, and we love you. And I've been wanting to call you, but I didn't know if you could take a phone call.
She doesn't get the phone calls.
I understand. But Peggy, we love you, and may Baba's love and grace just
Oh,
surround you.
absolutely. Love you, Peggy. Love you forever.
Thank you.
Love you, Peggy.
Thank you. Same to you. I don't know.
Love you, Peggy.
Oh, I didn't even recognize you either.
Love you, Peggy.
We've all gotten older.
Oh, I thought you
for that one, Mama. I don't know.
Great. Well, we're so happy you're here.
How wonderful.
Oh.
So now I'm going to ask everyone to mute their phones, your devices, whatever you're using. And I want to welcome you all to here to the Hedekandi Universal Ashram. Here's Babaji. This is the main asana. And then the other room is where Mother and the Murti of Old Hiraman Babaji is. And I'm going to highlight people probably one by one as people tell some special moments of their experience with Babaji. So I'm going to start with Nan Singh, because I know he has to go to work this Monday morning in Australia. So just like people said, it's quite amazing that we can gather like this around the world and that people are sturdy. And what is it, 5 o'clock there in your neck of the woods?
Yes, it's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Nice. Well,
It's
welcome.
Monday morning. Australia is ahead of the rest.
Great.
Okay.
So what would you like to share with the group? I thought this day would be more, we would just probably choose a special story to begin with.
Yeah, look, I thought I'd share a particular incident that happened when I was with Babaji in Hiraman. And you know, this amazing miracle of Shri Babaji is that he seems to create or to put us into situations where we can resolve whatever it is that's between us and ending the illusion of separateness. So this little story involves another man who was living in Hiraman in 1977. This happened, this incident in Hiraman. And he was an Indian man who was living there at the same time as me. And the first moment we saw each other, somehow we had a deep dislike of each other. Never met before, but we just couldn't stand each other. So Babaji would put us together to work all the time. He would send us out to work in the forest together, just the two of us. And it was, we'd throw things at each other, and it was just a horrible experience for us both. And day by day, the situation got worse. And one morning, Babaji called us and he told us to each go and bring a shovel, a spade. And took us outside the ashram to the ashram garbage pile, the rubbish pile.
Never mind.
And if you've been in India for any time, you will know that garbage piles in India can be pretty disgusting. They're often semi-liquid and black and stinking and, well, I guess like garbage piles everywhere, but somehow they seem to be worse. Babaji looked at this garbage pile and he told us to move it with these shovels about 5 meters, 5 yards, like ridiculous. No practical reason, but it took almost the whole day to shift this stinking, rotting garbage. And at the end, we were covered in black guck, both of us. We went to the river together. The clothes we had on, our longies, we had to throw away. They were, it was so disgusting. So we had to take a bath together. Took us ages to get ourselves clean. And, you know, we laughed together and we became very, very close friends. So, the reason I tell this story is for a number of reasons that occurred to me that came up spontaneously when I was thinking about what to say to you this morning. Whenever we experience difficult situations, our natural inclination is to turn our back on them. And we're actually genetically programmed to do so. It's the fight or flight response. Rather than exploring the challenge with what is this difficulty that's come up for me, and exploring it with curiosity and openness to see what it really means for us. Babaji puts these situations, these difficulties, these challenges, they come up because there's something we need to learn for ourselves. And also, if we don't deal with our blockages, if we don't deal with our shit, they will just get stronger and stronger until we do deal with them. And, you know, we probably all recognize these recurring patterns, these recurring situations that come up. If we turn our back on them, then you know, the pattern continues. So we have to look at them and see what there is that needs to be resolved. The other miracle of these situations, that is these stories that come up in our relationship with Baba, is that over time they seem to have endless meanings and greater depth. And I think it mirrors our own spiritual growth, our own inner depth. So that as we go deeper, the stories take on different meanings and we learn more and more. And so Babaji, this simple father, creates these seemingly simple situations or difficulties in our life that come up, and if we can use them to resolve the challenge, they seemingly take on a different meaning too. And these simple situations can resonate with us in different ways throughout our life. That's certainly been my experience. Bole Baba Ki.
Bole Baba Ki Jai. Thank you, Nan Singh. Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. I'm going to put the spotlight now on you, Ramlotha. I'll see, we'll have to find, oh, here, add spotlight. Okay.
Ciao, Nan.
Ciao. And ask you to tell this amazing story of the silver pendant.
See, yeah, it was a brooch.
A brooch. And because I have trouble always understanding your accent, I want you to speak just a little slower and close to your microphone, okay? Besides, my aging ears are getting a little bit harder to hear too.
You tell me if you hear me. You hear me well?
Yes, thank you, Ramlotha. I don't want to miss a word.
Okay. Yes, this is a nice story, I think. because it gives us somehow an idea what we are dealing with when we talk about Baba. So the story started one evening in Arakan. Baba came out for darshan wearing a waistcoat, classic Indian waistcoat like this one. And it was very nice. For some reason, I liked it a lot, with the tiny little stripes, white, red, and black. And for some reason, I find Baba very handsome. I liked this waistcoat, and I liked him in the waistcoat. So I kept admiring him, and thoughts like, oh, how handsome you are, how smart you look, Baba, kept coming up in my mind. And throughout the darshan, maybe for this reason, I was very alert, very interested, very attentive to what was going on. And I remember at a certain point, an Italian lady, Parvati, came up to Baba in line for pranam and gave him this silver star, a brooch in silver filigrane, very nice object, looked like Liberty style, about this size, like this. And with this, it was a very beautiful object. And Baba took it, admired it, and made it slip in the pocket of his waistcoat. Not recycled like normally, all the prasad, all the gifts were recycled immediately, but that one was special, so Baba dropped it in the pocket of his waistcoat. And that was it. And maybe 1 week, 10 days passed, and one afternoon I was working in my Italian international diamond restaurant that Baba made us open on the Gufa side in front of the Gufa. And it was about 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and Baba used to come down to take a bath, normally at the conjunction of the two branches of the Gautama Ganga near the Satikund. And that morning he came up, I looked up to the other side of the river, and I saw that he was wearing, this same waistcoat. And I said, oh, you have that nice waistcoat again. No, good. And I kept doing my work. And well, you have to know, in that period, often it was coming in my mind, I was looking at him and I said, but who are you really? How do you work? How all these things function? Because we were all there, we were having all these leelas, these stories, these things happening, and I was trying to understand, and I couldn't really grasp it. And in that period, I was quite often together with my good friend Tukaram from Switzerland. And so we exchanged the feeling. What was going on, what was happening. So Tukaram leaned more on the idea like Baba had like an Encyclopedia Britannica Universal with all the knowledge there available for him. While I had more the impression that everything was coming to him in the right moment. When it was needed, everything was coming to him. So there was this thing going on in my mind. So I'm there working. I noticed that Baba was going down to take a bath in the river with the same waistcoat that he wore that evening. And suddenly his attendant arrives running and said, Ramlotha, Baba said, you go bath with him. So I said, oh, okay. I had already bathed, but he called me. So what can I do? I took my towel and off down the river I went. And I reached Baba. We were there at the Sangam, at the conjunctions between the two branches of the Gautama Ganga near Satikund, somewhere. And Baba bathed, we bathed him, everything was going on nicely, and the river was quite low, so the trucks could come up, and we see a truck coming up. And when the truck arrives at our height there on 50, 60 meters, it stops. And the door opened, and a German devotee came down. And I knew him because he was there already at Christmas. He had come before. And I think his name was German, was Hans. And so he started walking towards Baba, towards us, carrying a big suitcase. I remember this red Samsonite. So he arrives there and he makes pranam, and Baba greets him, and he is very happy to see him. And this Hans is also very happy, makes pranam, and then he opens this suitcase and he lowers the upper part that was of the bag there, and it was full of gold jewels. He had bought several gold jewels, necklaces, bracelets, earrings, rings, to donate to Baba. So we were really all astonished, surprised, really surprised. Baba too was he looked at this beautiful gold jewelry. And at a certain point, he looked at us, and I saw that he was, it's a tradition in India, and when you go to a guru, you give a present to a guru, he gives you something back. So he looked at us to see if he looked at our hands, if we had a fruit, anything to give back to Hans. But we didn't have anything because two attendants were half naked. I was half naked too after my bath. So we didn't have anything. And so Baba made this gesture like this to check the pockets of his waistcoat. And he felt something here in the right pocket. He put his hand inside and took off, and there was this brooch, the silver star, and he put it in the hands of Hans. And I saw the Hans was very shocked when he received this thing. And then Baba, satisfied, said, okay, chalo. He was happy he had done his thing, and we all went away. And while walking, I turned around and I saw Hans still kneeling there in the middle of the stones, staring at this brooch, this silver star brooch. And it was okay. And 2-3 days later, Hans comes to my chai shop, my restaurant. At a certain point, there were 5-6 people, they all go away, we remain alone. And so I approached him and said, Hans, if you don't mind, because I saw it was quite intense for you, you had a strong reaction. Do you mind telling me the story, why it was so intense for you? And he told me this story. He said, when I was 10, 11 year old, I got a diphtheric fever, very high. And for 3-4 days, my life was in balance. And doctors were afraid I could die. And during these 3-4 days, at a certain point, one night, I dreamt, I had a dream, and at a certain point of this dream, I had a dream that was very powerful, that I felt it was a healing dream. And at a certain point of this dream, I saw a hand putting a brooch, a silver star filigrane in front of me, in a place full of stones. So he woke up and the fever was gone. And he felt always that dream had healed him. And this was already his, I think, 5th or 6th visit to Arakan. And so he somehow recognized the energy of the dream with the energy of Hiraman. But he would have never imagined, when this thing happened, that he saw this silver star coming in front of him, like in the dream, he had really a shock. So I said, wow. And then he left, and I remained there, and I was totally, you know, really, how do you say, flabbergasted in English, no, completely in awe of these incredible mysteries. Now, first, the story of Hans, no, that he had this dream when he was 11. He looked about 50, 55. So he had this dream 40 years before. This was 81. Germany was near on the middle of the war or just out of it. So he had this dream of this hand coming down, and 40 years, 40 something year later, this thing happened really for him, and Baba put his thing there. And also how it happened, because it's not that Baba said, oh, now, today, Hans will arrive, and I will give him the brooch that he dreamt, the silver star brooch that he dreamt 40 some years ago. No, it was like this. It happens by chance, by accident, apparently. Huh? He just checked the pocket of his waistcoat, felt something inside, and gave it the first thing without even looking. He gave it to him, and there it was. And that struck me a lot. And then also, what struck me incredible was that what prompted him, I asked myself, to call this Italian boy who was working in the restaurant. It was the first and only time that he called me to his bath. What prompted him, no, to check? Oh, go, he told Leru, go call Ramlotha for bath. So that I could witness this, because I had noticed maybe the brooch when he received the brooch. I noticed the brooch, and then it was such an incredible net of connections that no human mind can conceive and put together. No, it was really something beyond. Completely beyond. And so Baba was up in the Gufa following, looking some works. And when he came down, he passed in front of the restaurant. I went down there and just made full flat pranam on like this, you know, flat there. Incredible.
Thank you.
And that's about it.
Yeah, thank you. I love that story. It's amazing to know that Baba's got each one of us. So, you know, in Hiraman at any time, there were how many people, you know, maybe hundreds of people. And then all of us around the world that weren't there. And Baba at each moment had us in our mind to answer our questions, to give us grace. We had a request from Joanne Hungslow. We do have other people that are going to tell stories, but if you want to share one short one, Joanne, and maybe give us a little bit of information about when you met Babaji before you have to go off.
Well,
Would you like to do that?
Sure, thank you. Vole Baba Ki Jai. What happened was I was working in the office with Rudraksha, and he said, you know, I was going into my mentis, so I couldn't be with Babaji or work. And so he says, if you want to read, I was going through the books. He goes, if you want to read a really good book, here it is. So I read this book about this person's way to Babaji, and it was all my story. And that night I went to bed and I had a dream about Babaji. He was sitting right in front of me at the foot of my, you know, my sleeping bag on that wonderfully hard floor in the women's dorm. And Babaji was, you know, he's right above us sleeping in, because the women's dorm was right underneath his room. So he didn't have far to come. And the next day I woke up with this love of God, my heart just bursting with the love of God. and I was just in love with God at that point. And I went to, I couldn't do darshan or anything, so I sat across in this construction, because one of the places we're having construction. This was in December of 1983, right? But I was there the few months before he took Mahasamadhi. And so I'm sitting across there and I'm watching down in by where he does the darshan in the morning, and everybody's, you know, kind of doing the thing and everything. And so he sends Karku over into the bushes for a leela, and he kept sending him back and forth. Everybody's laughing and everything. And I said to Babaji in my mind, I said, I'm going to sit here until you acknowledge me, if it takes the rest of my life. And I sat there and sat there and sat there through the whole thing. And then he sent, I mean, it was like 30, 40, 50 minutes, you know, and I just sat there and I said, well, this could be a long time, I said to myself. And so he did another leela with Karku, and he sent him into the bushes, and everybody was laughing. And just then Babaji turned around and looked at me, and he hit my heart. He hit my heart with Shakti in my heart, and he about knocked me over. And I just said, okay, Bole Baba Ki Jai. It was just the most incredible thing I've ever, you know, one of the most incredible experiences I had with him. It was just poof, you know, it was great. Bole Baba Ki Jai. Happy Mahasamadhi, everybody.
Thank you, Joanne, for sharing that. And again, I think it's so important that we realize that the physical, you know, right, you didn't have to go up and pranam, you could just simply ask, and in your heart you received. Such an important. So Pujari and Hiraman, one of you want to share, and then I'm going to share a story. Who would like to go first?
Well, I don't see Hiraman. I'm happy to go first if I'm on. I think I put my mic on.
Your mic is on,
Yes.
and you're going to have.
Yes.
Okay, good. I have two not too long stories, I think. One is about also a waistcoat that Ramlotha was speaking so beautiful about. I had a lila with a waistcoat also. And it also is what Joanne was talking about, the music and the bhajan. It happened that, let me start from Holland. I was in Holland coming back from Hirakan, and I desperately wanted to go back to Baba because it was heaven there. So what I did, normally you had to wait 3 months before you could apply for a new visum. What I did when I came back, I put my passport in the washing machine and I applied for a new passport, which was successful. In 2 days, I had a new passport. And then I applied for a visum to go back to India with her. Well, I hope it's gonna work. And on my birthday, it happened that my visa came, and the same day I bought a ticket and I had to hurry up because I had to catch my plane. So that was a beautiful coincidence. Part of that hurrying up was that I normally played a Greek instrument called the bouzouki, a string instrument. The first time I came to Baba, I was happily playing this together with Paolo and others. Some had a guitar, I had a bouzouki, and many times I could play some simple bhajan mantra for Baba and with the devotees. But in my hurry of packing, I fell from the stairs with that instrument. So it broke, and that was, I finished Hogya. So no more instrument to take to Hirakan. And that's why that time when I came to Baba, I start to get an interest in the harmonium, which was already standing there. So there I learned a little bit to play the first notes of Arti. And then Sheila Dev said, oh, I can help you. She said, oh, fantastic. She was sitting by my side in the Kirtan hall, and I learned my first bhajan. Amba Bhavani Jaya Jagadambe. And she taught me some first part of the art. She said, wow, great, it's not so difficult. I knew a little bit piano, so I said, well, I love this. This is beautiful for me. And then Baba was sitting upstairs under the people tree where he often was sitting, and he noticed probably something. He called me over. He said, Pujari, come. Somebody came to get me. Pujari, come to Babaji. I had to come to Baba, and he just said, oh, nice, you sit. And he called the tailor. And the tailor had to make measurement from my body to make a jacket, a waistcoat. And he made a beautiful blue waistcoat. And later I discovered he also made one for Sheila Devi. I share this because it's so magical. From that first moment, Babaji already acknowledged that I had some duty, talent to do in this life for him. So this bhajan, it started with one and then the arti, but just to wear this jacket was such an acknowledgement from Baba, so that you're on the right track in that sense. So that was a very beautiful gift. And that's also Baba, sometimes he could be so caring and beautiful, supporting you, and other times he could completely destroy you in the, which I had some also experiences with I shared already. And another little story I want to share with you was that in my Pujari time also I got some other little jobs to do. And one was to paint Babaji's swinging chair. He had a metal swinging chair, and in the monsoon time it would be standing in the kirtan hall, and Baba would sit there, and then we would sit around and sing kirtan, and he would swing around. And then he asked me, you paint this thing. It was ugly after some time, so I had to white paint. He knew I was doing other painting jobs already before, so he gave me the job to do paint the chair. When I was done, I said, well, looks perfect, beautiful, clean, white. He came and looked, and then he looked underneath the chair, where you sit on, and he said, hey, what is this? Did no paint? I didn't paint underneath the chair. I thought, well, the heck no, that's no need. But said, no, you had to paint there. A little later, I had to paint he had a painting table, a little table, a desk, which he make his watercolors and his paintings on this thing. And it was also very ugly and dirty and scratched. So he asked to paint this thing. Same, I paint the whole table, beautiful, the legs and the thing, huh? But, and again, underneath, I didn't paint it again. So then, well, this painting, the message was what I got after two times. I got the message from, we have to look underneath what we're doing. There is something, Baba knew us. He knows always what is underneath our behavior. Like for all his devotees close to Baba, we knew Babaji knows us better than we know ourselves. But he pushed me to always look, if you do something, look, what is your motivation? What is underneath? Why do you want attention? Do you want love? Do you want money? Do you want another acknowledgement? Do you want a girlfriend? What is your motivation in your behavior? And it is a very, Baba was a psychiatrist at least from the ultimate level. So that was also for me a very strong impulse and a lesson that is still going on, to look why you do things. Now, is it really to serve God or to experience the divine? Or what is, and there's obstacles in the way, but if we don't look clearly, we won't be able to see it. So that was my message from Baba, to always look deeply in your personality, psychology. Why do you want something? Why do you do something? A little story comes to mind about Sheila Devi. Once Baba had a nutcracker, and Babaji asked her, you put your finger in the nutcracker. She did put the finger in, and Baba said, he screwed this thing to crack the nut. And he went on, and she said, oh, ow. But Baba went on, and it was really bleeding. And then Baba stopped. And then he asked you, he said, but Baba, why you do this? He said, but why you put your finger in? That is also something. Why did you put your finger in? Why do you get yourself in trouble? No, it's a very strong message also to remember. We have to be very careful how we move through life in that sense. Just alert, be attentive. and look underneath. What is driving you? Why are you doing this? You want love, attention, to be seen. You want to be famous. For all the wrong reasons, we won't end up in the heart of Baba. That's the few stories I want to share this time. And I'm happy to give the word away, Ramloti, because we have more beautiful people that can share.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's so interesting as we sit together like this. I just want to first remind everybody to please mute their device, because there's a few people, thank you, we're hearing some background noise. But as we get together, and I've shared this before, that for many years, whenever a devotee would show up here, we would have a satsang, and there may be 3, 4, 5, 6 of us telling stories. But like one story brings up, I mean, I had a story I thought I was going to tell, but now Pujari and everybody's story has brought up 10 more stories in me of lessons I learned. But I think now we'll move to Hiraman. If you're ready, sir.
Valentine Day में लगे हुए हैं, ये सत्संग कर रहे हैं, गोरे देख लो.
Somebody is still not, please make sure you mute, thank you. And we're going to highlight Mr. Hiraman here.
Well, it's first of all, it's just really lovely to see family, you know, all the faces, old family and the new family that we're making every day. So thanks, Ramloti, for doing this. It's just a wonderful idea. So, and I didn't really come with an idea of what to speak about. And so just kind of also with what Ramloti was saying, there's just all this lovely, Baba so much couched his wisdom in humor so much, and you can feel that thread of love and humor running through everything that everybody said so far, you know. That inspires me just to, before I figure out a story, just to say, you know, thanks for all being here, and maybe riff on a little bit of what everybody's said so far. You know, Nan Singh talked about how Baba put us together so that we could work through things with people and objects that we put in front of ourselves too. And then we had a lovely story of that, how Baba was so timeless, you know, with the brooch from Ramlotha, and how everything just fits all the time with Baba. Just like everything is so seamless. Every moment is beyond what anybody could choreograph, except for Baba. And then what really struck me also with Pujari was how I read something the other day that reminded me of what Babaji had said about the Kranti and how the Kranti happens because we have too much I in us, you know, and we're always thinking of I, and then one really beautiful thing was that everybody wants to be big and nobody wants to be small, and that just really touched me, because, you know, in all of us we always have a desire for attention, and I'm a beekeeper, so I really relate to how when we're all small we can just do amazing things, like when we all work together and like the bees will, you know, there's sometimes in one of the hives there's 120, 140,000 bees, and no one's really the boss. It's just everybody works together, and then what do we get out of that? This beautiful nectar, honey and pollen. And so that, before any kind of story pops into my head, I think that I just wanted to acknowledge all the lovely things that everybody said, and how the wisdom that touches our hearts, we know that that's a true wisdom. We feel it. We don't have to even understand it sometimes, but we know the rightness of it. And that's kind of what Satsang is, you know, to gather for the truth. So thanks everybody for being here. Can anybody give me a subject? I didn't think about what to say, so Just pop some subject out there and I'll dredge one up.
I've asked you before, this idea of what was your experience when you sat with him? I guess, yeah, a little bit this when you were with him in Grindavam in 1976, I think you said for Guru Purnima.
That was in the Mela. But
Nice.
Guru Purnima is when he gave the Babaji Murti to us.
Okay, but when he gave you all these malas and you said you actually got to go in his room and sit with him and things, so I don't perceive you as somebody who pushes to do that. It just seems like you were just there, and I don't know, did you have any concept around what was going on, and that some people were wishing all their times with Babaji, they would love to have a mala, and you would receive 500 malas?
Well,
did ego arise, or thinking I'm quite great about this, or?
I think that I was always just so in love with being with Baba and being there, and that didn't arise for me a lot, because I just felt I've always known that I'm a complete bonehead, so it's easy to kind of we can always find the crazy funny things that we do, and also, but not in a way of shame, like I never really shame myself, but I know that I can always do better. I mean, it's just totally apparent in my life. So but with Babaji, I think what Babaji would say to me a lot is, you're so simple, and it was just really simple for me being with Babaji. It was like, it was the simplest thing in the world. Everything else, can be complicated in the world, but being with Babaji is just so completely simple. It's just love, and so that was really easy for me. And when he gave me all those malas, I knew they weren't for me. I mean, because one mala, how many malas can you use anyway? I mean, one mala is more than enough for me. So I just knew that somehow that those were going to fit into the brooch, they were going to fit into other people's lives down the line, which is exactly what's happened. And through a lot of your good graces, Ramloti, you've distributed a lot of them. And so, we always have to watch for ego, but when we're in love, the ego just kind of recedes a little bit, I think, And as far as sitting, that was kind of my prime time with Babaji. I've always really loved stillness and been a little bit adept at finding it. And so those moments were always completely golden. Like some of my favorite times of the day with Babaji were always those moments of stillness. And not the moments, for me, it wasn't like when there was a lot of stuff going on, and I'm a little bit of a shy person in some ways. And so it was easy for me just to be in the background and just take those moments that Babaji gave to be with him, and at night, oftentimes, especially in the earlier years, I would just sit on Babaji's roof when everybody went to bed. And, just the amazing things that you would see just sitting on Babaji's roof at night, like, the lights on Mount Kailash and lights coming just from Mount Kailash down into his room, and just, all this wonderful stuff. And even that was just like, it was kind of fun, but it wasn't really the essence of Babaji. All of his miracles, and the things that he could do were just, they were just the icing on the cake sometimes. But the real miracle with Babaji was just that incredible amount of love that he has for us. That it's just, even when we're complete boneheads, he loves us. And even when we make the wrong choices, he loves us. We just go from that, we make a bad choice, And we go from there. And then we just, you know, he says, okay, well, you could have been this way, but it's not. So let's go from here and we'll work it out. And it's always just this, you know, constant, it's like constant faith in us. You know, I really, you know, feel that. So I don't know what story this is, but it's kind of anyway. Yeah, that does it for me.
Thank you. Hiraman. It's just the right. And I think this is our day of just feeling Baba in our hearts, all of us. That he left his body on Valentine's Day. Thank you. So, David, I know you wanted to share. We have a few minutes here. Are you able to share your story in a few minutes, or would you rather I still have a story to share? Why don't we save yours till the end, David? Because yours is in more present time about Mahasamadhi Day. Would that be okay? So it's a wonderful thing that there's so many devotees here who met Babaji. So I'm going to go ahead and share a story that has different people, even who are here in it. Just make sure there's just 4 of us. So let's see if you can see me. There you go. So I went to Baba in 81 for a month in February, and then I came back for the summer of 81. And I was there, fortunately, for 3 months. And the 3 months is coming to an end. But before that, or right in that time, I was working in the office, and Baba was going to have a meeting. Once in a while, he'd have meetings over in the Cape side, very important meetings. And I think Loknath or somebody asked me, he said, or Radhasham, can you sit next to Babaji and take notes of what he says? I thought, oh, can I? You know, of course, my ego just flared up on that one. Hiraman stories about, you know, when you're just in love, you don't think of anything else. And I had a lot of times I was thinking about me and not really, you know, feeling the love as much. So Baba had to do quite some antics to help me feel that love that is all pervasive all the time. So anyway, so of course that morning, just like Joanne said, it was my out of the blue, my woman's time came, the time of my menses. And so during that time, you don't go to Baba or to the ceremonies. It's a time for quiet, more rest, more meditation. It's an inward time for a woman, very beautiful time. But of course, I was so sad not to be able to go to this meeting. And so it was afternoon, and so I just thought, well, I'll stay in my room. And I actually fell asleep. And was sort of meditating, but then sort of sleeping, you know, that wonderful state. And I had 3 dreams. And they were all about Babaji. But in the moment, they weren't so nice. They were probably showing me what I was up to. The first one, I had this dream where Babaji had, or seemed to have locked me in a prison. And all I remember seeing were these bars, you know, the bars made out of rebar, and just feeling, you know, trapped and exhausted and so sad. It's like, why did he do this to me? And then I woke up and I just sort of sat for a little while and I thought, wow. And I fell back to sleep. And I had another dream. And in this dream, I was sitting with Babaji and he took this thing like a branding iron, you know, like they brand calf, out of a fire and branded me with it. And it hurt so bad. And I just, once again, I started crying and crying. And it's like, Baba, why would you do this to me? And then I woke up again and I fell asleep again. And this time I had like a wound, and he took salt and he rubbed salt in my wound. And once again, very painful, and I was crying, and why? So I woke up from this dream, this, it's like really very disoriented, and I didn't know really what to make of it. And so then life went on, and I don't know that I ever told anybody about the dreams. It's interesting there, Motu was my roommate, and I talked with her. I don't tell her the dream, but I hardly ever talked to anybody because I just wanted to be with Babaji all the time. I didn't drink chai at the chai shop or anything like that, so nobody knew. But anyway, so a few weeks later, a wonderful thing happened, and I got this beautiful gold sari from Babaji, and that's a whole nother story. But that evening, I wore it because I knew I had to ask him if I could renew my visa. And so I got somebody to translate, and Hiraman's laughing because he was there, I remember. And so I asked him if I could renew my 3-month visa was coming to an end. And that was sort of a big deal because it was sort of like, you got to stay and then, you didn't get thrown out. Yeah. But then the next step was, for me, it was going to be him proving that he loved me because I needed him to prove it all the time. I needed him to give me a toffee or an apple or call me to him, something like that. I guess I didn't know that even though I was a bonehead, that he still loved me. I didn't always trust that, Hiraman. So so he said, oh yes, Ramloti, and I'll take care of you and I'll show you where to stay and these people will help you. And I just went to bed feeling so loved. And in the morning, something happened. People were at the chai shop before Aarti, and so Baba, that was a rule. We weren't to do that. And so Baba got Motu and said, you write down every person who doesn't come to Aarti or who are late for Aarti. So it wasn't me. I went to Aarti, but I got there before the Pujari inside the temple, or just after he started ringing the bell as he feeds the murti. So that's that part. So Motu wasn't sure if that would be considered being late for Aarti. So she wrote my name down on the list too. But she said, people who were there before that and after that, and there's lots of people on the list. Anyway, so Baba sees the list and he says, all people on list, go. You go tomorrow. And I'm just going, and I was on the list. So I asked Gauradevi and she said, oh no, he didn't mean me. I'll take you up and you can get forgiven. And so she took me up and Babaji says, okay, but renew visa, you go. So still it was like, and so then he said, oh, I know, before he said that, he said, okay, all people can stay one more night if they chant all night. And so you better believe I was in the Kirtan hall right after Aarti and chanted all night. And about 3 a.m, I was feeling so cramped and so bad about, having to leave and that I was being thrown out and I didn't really feel like I was late for Aarti. And, it's like, why did Baba do this to me? And I opened my eyes and I see the window on the Kirtan hall. And it's the exact bars, how they put the rebars to keep the monkeys out. And it's that exact vision that I saw in the dream. And I knew in that moment, it's like, Baba hadn't put me in jail. I put myself in jail. And I have this moment now that I could be chanting all night in Hirakan and be in bliss, or have the choice of feeling like I'm in jail and imprisoned here. And so I was so grateful for that dream. So the next morning, I went for my bath and I went to Babaji's fire, went and got chandan in the morning. And then after, you could sit around his fire. And that time I'd never seen this, but he had something called a chimta, which I think you use. It's like a big metal thing that you use to stir the fire and you also use it to play music, but mostly this is what. And after the fire, he said, does anybody have any pain? Well, I had pain from running in my knee. I had fallen on a stump of a tree and had a big gouge there, and the knee wasn't right. And I said, I do. And he says, come. And he said, lift. I said, right here. He said, lift. And I lifted my sari to my knee. And he took this red hot chimta out and he burnt my knee right there. And it was the exact same. Once again, it was like his love. His love was a little rough, but it was nothing like my interpret. But even now I'm realizing how much I interpret things, just like all of you have been talking about. It's my interpretation that makes my life really yucky sometimes. So the third dream was a little bit more esoteric maybe, but at the same time, so he let us stay another 2 nights, but we had to chant all night. So I was chanting all night. In the daytime, he gave me this job, this karma yoga of a big piece of cloth, because we were coming up to fall Navaratri. And in those days, at least in India, you had to like sew every sequin. A sequin is a tiny round thing and with a little hole in it. And he wanted me to put sequins all over this huge cloth. So I'm sitting there not having slept all night, making this, sewing and sewing and sewing. I'm just like so tired. And he kept asking me, you finished yet? No, Mama, not yet. And so, but anyway, so no sleep. And then Motu gets her money stolen. And he acts as if, because Motu and I and one other woman, I can't remember, it was Musirata or somebody, Neelam from Germany, somebody, the three of us had a very luxury room up high near Gora. And that was very nice. And I could, when I did get to sleep, I could just fall asleep. He acted as if I had stolen the money and he threw me out of that room. He said, you no sleep in that room. You go to the big dormitory that I think Joanne was talking about, where there's 100, this was even the bigger dormitory where there were 100 people and nobody slept. They just talked and everything. And so for me, that was the more symbolic one of rubbing salt in my wound. I already felt, so horrible that I couldn't stay. And then on top of that, it seemed as if I was being treated as a robber. And so those are my 3 dreams. And once again, it just fits into all of this, that Baba knows everything and there's no time or space. And I remember seeing Hiraman, and it was really helpful, Hiraman, because I was walking one day, and because every time I see Baba, he said, he'd be very kind to me. And then he'd say, but renew visa. And Hiraman said to me, he said, Baba really doesn't want you to renew your visa. And I really heard that when you said that. And I realized it was time for me to go home. I only asked him to see if he loved me, but I knew my money was running out. I had sent my children home a few weeks before, and it was time. I was missing them. And anyway, so that's my story of that, of Baba always knowing everything, and how my mind really often can go to the terrible or the victim type one. So yeah, ongoing learning, moment to moment to moment. So thank you.
Ramloti.
Hi.
Can I share one more short story? Then I have to go to work, unfortunately. So I'd been living in India a long time before I went to Hiraman. And when I got to Hiraman, I only had $2 left, no ticket. And Babaji, I only had the clothes I stood up in. And Babaji told them to take the flags off, these big flags on the temple. He told them to take them down, and he told the tailor to make shirts for me. And these big flags had Om Namah Shivaya, huge letters on them. And so I end up with this bright red shirt with big Om on the front. I had to wear. And then there were some other flags in green and purple and red. And he told them I had another shirt that had purple here and green here and red here. And but I was so pleased with them. But the story that it reminded me of about how Baba sees everything. Before I went to Hiraman, I was blessed with the darshan of some saints and living with sadhus and so on. I always wanted a Rudraksha Mala because I thought I was going to be a sadhu. And Babaji gave me one day, I'd been there a couple of days or something, and he gave me this mala. I use to this day. It's a little sandalwood mala. And well, it was, you know, I used it. I was very grateful to have it, but I still had this yearning for a Rudraksha Mala. Then Baba sent me to live alone in Rajasthan in the desert, near a desert village. And I'm sitting there doing japa all day. And he'd sent at the same time Kaku to Nepal. And one day, I'd never told anybody about this desire for a Rudraksha Mala. And one day, a little tiny parcel arrives from Nepal. What's this? They called me to the local post office. There's a parcel for you. Go and get it. And it was from Kaku in Nepal. And I still use these to this day, but what I realized was these big malas are very heavy. When I put it around my neck, I realized being a sadhu and wearing this big mala is actually a tapasya. And it's not so comfortable to wear. Better you have this one. He really sees everything. And when Baba satisfies our desires, it's like to get them out of the way. They're between us and the divine. Mm-hmm. So yes, the desires get fulfilled, so you can get on with it. Bole Baba ki jai.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. He does know. Yeah. Like I didn't even know in my heart that I wanted, you know, to go home, but he knew. So thank you. David, would you say a little bit about yourself? Because not everybody has had the pleasure as I have had, and all of us at the ashram, because, well, you know, I'm going to actually, I'm going to just put the two of you on the screen right now. So you're on candid camera, Lorain and David, and I'm just going to say a few words that they're a very big part of the ashram here, and I'm going to cry because they live way far away in Denver, and we don't see them as much now. But when James Gower came to here, and Pujari remembers James very well, and many people do, to Crestone, sort of following his heart about maybe making an ashram here, Lorain and David were already living here out of a population of about 80 people. And somehow, as they were talking about a healing center, nobody was broaching the subject of an ashram, I don't think yet, or anything like that. One of them got excited and said, this is my story, I'm telling it. It may not be true. You can tell me the true story. But one of them got excited and said, Bole Baba ki jai. And the other one said, you know Babaji? There's 80 people living here. And David and Lorain said, yes, we met him in the 70s. And so then the ashram blossomed from there. And that was about probably 83 or so, 80. It was 84. It was after 84, after Baba's Samadhi. And then Pujari and I came, and Muniraj and Sastriji came, and David sat on our board of directors. Lorain is they've been such a part of the ashram. So I love their stories. So now I'll be quiet and give you the mic to tell a little bit about your story, and particularly your Mahasamadhi story.
Right. Want to say anything?
No.
So we saw, Baba actually called us to Hirakan in 1979, and shall we say, gave us the money to get there. Or
David, can you speak a
yeah.
little closer to the microphone? Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Or talk louder, right?
Yes, we do.
So anyway, Babaji provided the funds for us to go to Hirakan, and it was under any other circumstances, one would go, gee, there was so many serendipitous things that, just fell into place in the moment. So we were graced with being with Baba, and then we came back to the US, and we didn't fit in anywhere at that time. So we went on the road and we started working with Native American people. This is a short preamble about the Mahasamadhi story. And so in 1983, summer of 83, we moved to Crestone. And we used to say there was 150 monks, dogs, and cats in Crestone in those days. And so everybody knew everybody. And so we were, we were still involved with Native Americans, and I was translating for a Nahuatl or Aztecan serpent priest, and we got more and more involved with that. And we were on the board of directors, the president of the board of directors of a Kalpuli, which is a cultural school, and one thing and another. And we had a huge lesson from Babaji when we were in Hirakan about everywhere you go, whatever you do, there's rules. And we were getting out of the parameters of rules that we knew and understood working with this Nahuatl master. And so anyway, and things were getting more and more confusing with him. So on the 14th of February 1984, we were like, we need some clarity. We'd never left Babaji's heart and mind, and he never left us. But we felt like we needed to go to the sand dunes and get some clarity. So that's what we did, which is about a 60-mile trip one way, because you have to go around so much. Anyway, we were walking around and talking and hashing out all of this this story, and of course Babaji's admonition of learn the rules wherever you go. So we finally realized that we can't work with this man anymore. We have to move on with our life, which was moving in a different direction. And so just about that moment, we're walking along, and all of a sudden from behind us, this pinkish orangish Babaji color goes right between us, from behind us, going so west east, and disappears. And I said in the moment, I said, wow, I don't know what's going on with Babaji, but something big is happening. Don't know what that is. So we got back to our car and started driving back home, and it was getting to be sunset. And as we drove along, we hit right as the sun was setting, 7 successive telephone poles had 7 successive golden eagles on them. We're like, wow, something really huge is happening with Babaji. Don't know what it is. We better get home. Something's gonna happen. So we, as we walked in the door, our phone was ringing, and we answered the phone, and I forget who it was, but they said, they told us that Babaji had just taken Mahasamadhi. So it took no time in relative terms for word to get from Hirakan all the way to funny little old Crestone, Colorado, and us to be identified with, to know that that's what was going on that day. It felt like it, that there was something very big that was happening. About 6 months later, James Gower and Betsy came to Crestone, and they were, in the back of their minds, they were thinking about an ashram, but in the front of the minds, they were talking about a healing center. and they talked to a friend of ours who was working in the hotel down below. And she called Lorain up and she goes, Lorain, there's some people here who are talking. I know they know what they're talking about, but I don't understand a word they're saying, but I think you would. So she sent them up to our house, and conversation went back and forth. And just as it seemed like, there wasn't a connection, they went, Bole Baba ki jai. And Lorain says, Bole Baba ki jai, you know Baba? And you go, you know Baba? You know Baba? So all of a sudden, Babaji opened the door, and the following summer is when Shastriji and Muniraj and others came to Crestone to check out if that was the place to build an ashram, and there it is.
One really quick footnote to that one is before they came and before anything else happened after James left, I was walking one evening just before the sun went down, and I stopped to look up at the mountains of surrounding Crestone, which I would often do that time of day. They're just remarkable as the sun is going down. And I looked up, and Babaji was enormous and standing on top of the mountain with his arms out. And that's what I told James. And that's how he said, and this is where the ashram should be, because they were going to build it in the state of Washington. And when I told him that vision I had, he believed it immediately and said that's where it should be. So, Bole Baba ki jai.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you for sharing that. It was too good.
Yeah, so beautiful.
Well, we have all been so blessed by being in the presence of Babaji. And, probably the rest of you will resonate with this, but sometimes people, will ask me, oh, well, they're thinking Babaji is like a person. And Lorain and I were laughing about this last night, just, talking about Baba and Mahasamadhi. And we're like, more like a hologram than a person. Babaji was not like any human being that anyone has met before. And there used to be Baba called him Black Boy. And he was one of Babaji's, and one day he was walking around with a plastic bag on his head, not down here, but just up here. And we went, what's going on there? And he goes, Babaji, he's 10,000 miles above us. We can't figure any of this out. He just shows us the way. It's still happening every day.
It's so good to see you all.
It's so good to see you. And I see Nagin there. Nagin, do you want to say a word? You have to unmute, sweetheart. You're muted, honey. No, we can't hear you.
We cannot hear you. Can you unmute yourself?
You know how to unmute?
The lower left-hand corner, there's a little microphone. In the very bottom left.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Great.
Okay.
Hi, Nagin.
Well, I'm ancient these days. And I find that Valentine's Day and Mahasamadhi are always difficult because I was there at the time. And a few of us on the screen were there. I think Pujari, you were there? Were you there?
Yeah, I was there. I shared some stories last time, I believe. Yeah, I was there.
So there was a few of us. That was just a handful at that time. Most people had left. It was just a handful of people, as I remember. And I'll tell you what, when he ascended, he told me to go into meditation. And I was outside, out above and outside his kurta, his little house. And I went into a very deep state of meditation, and I saw him ascend like Jesus. It was all light and glory, and he just rose up into the sky. And I always take that with me. And from that moment on, I never had a picture of Babaji around me, because I always assumed that because he left that body, that we should leave the body, you know, that we shouldn't pay any attention to it anymore, not give it any credence, so to speak. And I remember that Gora Devi at that point had plastered her room with pictures of Babaji. You know, you couldn't even move in her room. There were so many pictures of Babaji, because she was so incredibly in love with that form, let's put it that way. And I had painted her and Babaji outside the little house. And in that painting, she was in pranam and facing him, and he was in his king hat and his little staff and everything. And I remember I came back that was 84, and I came back in 87, I think. And I proceeded to repaint some of the pictures. And I took her out of the picture. She went ballistic. She went absolutely bonkers on me. And she was like, "How dare you take me out of the picture?" And I said, "You're not out of the picture. How could you be out of the picture?" I said, "It's just paint. It's just paint." I said, "If it's that upsetting to you, I'll put you back in." Okay, fine. But Valentine's Day has never been the same. I don't think it could ever be the same. It was a heart day. And I always associate it with Hiraman now, tearing his heart apart, because there's not enough room. There's not enough room for us. I get shivers all over my body. There just isn't enough room to hold all the gratitude and all the love, you know, that we have for being allowed in his presence as much as we were. And from the very beginning, and I was 1973, it was always 6 months, you know, on, 6 months off. We could never get more than that. And it was probably a good thing that we got kicked out at those points, you know. I was like, and when I would get to the Hiraman statue and about ready to leave, it was really like that was a portal, you know, that was a ley line. And when you got to that point and you had to step over the border into the world, it was probably the most painful thing I've ever gone through in my life. Having to go back. It was like the Bardos, you know, the Bardos, everybody, you know, the Bardos. And, you know, if you ever taken acid, you know the Bardos really well. Anyway, I've taken a lot. Anyway, so when you're expanded and you're in Shum and you're in your crown chakra and you're in the beyond, and all of a sudden your time's up, like on the Zoom here, you know, your time's up. And you feel that you're condensing and you're getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And you're not going to be able to stay in that altered state. You're going to have to come back into the body and work through whatever you're supposed to work through in the body. And it's so dense at that time. It's so thick. And you've just had this incredible expansion. And there you are again, coming down. That's what it was like to have to leave. In that time in Hirakan, again, there was just a handful of people that stayed another 6 months, basically. And we took care of the ashram, as we all know. And, you know, we had to deal with all of our big emotions and all of our love that we had and for each other, really. And a lot of us were very isolated in our loves, really. I mean, like, I think I hardly related to Pujari, actually. You know, I mean, you were always there, but, you know, we didn't really have any circumstances together. And some of us had more circumstances together than others, yet we were all there. You know, and I just want to tell you how much I love all of you, even though I haven't seen you in the physical form in a very long time. But it's always there. The energy is, you know, it's always there, and it's never been any less or more. It just is, and it's all about love. It's completely and only about love. And every time I find myself reconnected with Sandra and Marcus Ray, And they have shown me again how important it is to even though I might be with a total stranger, to kind of grok them, you know, to understand what they need in that moment. What kind of love do they need? And I'm now reaching out more by just doing it, just stepping out. I've always been intense. I've always been out there anyway. But now when I see someone who's been assaulted, so to speak, and it just happened this week, I went right over to her and I said, would you like me to help you release that right now? And she was like, oh, sure. And I did an immediate cleansing on her, and I released the Akka cords, and I took out, and I said, this woman has just sent you, a total stranger has just attacked you. Now, what you should send back to her is all the love that you have, because that's all there is. And that's what she's asking for. By doing this to you, she's asking for you to love her, not to hate her, not to feel bad about what she said. So drop the story, immediately drop the story. And I want you to go into your Christ light and just send love to this entity. And she did it. She did it right then and there. It took 5 minutes. Can you believe it? 5 minutes. And it was completely transformed. And it's because in that moment, I just decided to be brave and fearless and just say, this is, would you like this? Would you like this help right now? And she did it herself. She did. I said, you know what to do. You know exactly what to do. I'm just reminding you. And I said, do you feel better? She says, I feel completely fantastic. I said, that's great. Go back to work. And she did. And it was a very interesting moment, because in that moment, I needed help. And I went to her afterwards and I said, I have to negotiate this system and I don't understand this system. Can you help me? And she immediately turned around, fair play. She immediately helped me with these papers that I didn't know how to fill out or get done. And she did it. And this is all yesterday. I had 7 magic moments yesterday that were all about Babaji. It was all about Babaji, you know. And I remembered also, I wrote to Raghavir and I said, I remember what the 3rd day, on that 3rd day before he left the body, that was kind of all of us understanding that this was happening. This was actually happening. And maybe we had been in denial, even though we'd been there for the whole year, understanding that he was calling Kali the whole time and that he was going to transform. But on that 3rd day before he left, I think that was, I don't think we had any denial left in us. And yesterday was, you know, the 3rd day remembering again. And it doesn't always hit me so strong, but yesterday and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I should say. This all happened on Friday because it was still a business day. And I had huge, seven big events that were, the path was totally cleared for progress. And I just, you know, I'm mostly in touch with Raghavir and I don't really talk to anybody or see anybody else. It's mostly Raghavir. And I just want to thank you all for the good times, the wonderful times we've all had together, and the blessings that we've all shared. And we have a zillion stories. There's a zillion of them. You know, it's endless. And some of you don't exactly look the same, but either do I. But I could see Annalise Bosch, is it Bosch?
That's my wife, Nagini.
Ah, that's your wife's name.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
her laptop.
But I can see you as a tall, thin Italian. I can see you now. And I ate your spaghetti. It was wonderful. And I love you all so much. And Ramloti, I just want to say thank you for doing such an important and very difficult position that you've had for how many, is it 30 years now? How long has it been? It's been forever. And it's amazing that you've held the fort. You have held that spot and nobody else on the whole planet, and you're there. And it's just brilliant, and you deserve all the love that we can give you for holding that space open for all of us, for the whole planet. Beautiful. And Hiraman, I can't believe Hiraman. Oh, so much love. Just love you guys. I love you. It's just, is that your daughter there? Or who is that?
That's my wife.
Oh, it's your wife. But she looks so much like she could be Hiraman. You know, the when you were together with could be. She could be your genetic extension.
We're
Well,
pretty close.
she probably is. Anyway, love, and I know, just thank you, Ramloti, for acknowledging me being here. I appreciate it really deeply, and
So glad you're here, and hope Motu can get on one time. And there's just, like you said, there's millions of stories around the world that I would
million. All of us has got something.
because
Thank you for just letting me talk to everybody. I really, really deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Segue. It's also a great segue that you brought up. Next weekend, we'll have the same time, same place, and Sandra Ray will be on. So Nagin referred to working a little bit with Sandra Ray. She met Babaji and has incredible stories. And she'll be teaming up with Loknath, who many of us know as well, has been running the Samaj in America for several years. And that's also, so it's going to be a wonderful time, same place, same Zoom link. Tell your friends. So.
And Ramloti ji, someone mentioned on the chat about the jap, the 1000 malas of Om Namah Shivaya jap.
Yes, several people have been doing this. Raghuveer had, and I wrote about it. Raghuveer wrote another beautiful post today and talked about that now Satguru in southern India has got his thousands of people doing it as well, and they're doing it until Shivaratri. So the idea is to bring Babaji's energy back, and for him, it's this idea of bringing his physical energy to his asana again. And so that's what I know. And if you want to connect with the ashram, I can send you the link of him writing that. So
May I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
It's Katerina is asking a question. She
Can I
says,
ask?
Sure.
She says, please.
Can I ask, please? I unmuted.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I was fortunate enough to meet Sastriji when I went to India in 2001, and but after that I really lost the connection and everything, and I've actually never seen how to do japa properly. I did 1001. It took 1000 malas. It took me 10 days, but just like it's a technical question. I don't want to watch YouTube videos. I would rather ask you, how to do it properly. If you can just maybe show me, since you're there, maybe I can see, like, how do you flip it, and at what speed do you say Om Namah Shivaya? I know it's so technical. I'm sorry to be asking this, but just for like my peace of mind, I would like to know that, I did it properly, even though I did it from the heart, but just from you guys. You did it so many times. If you can just like show how you do it, it would mean so much to me just to have that picture in my mind when I do it. I feel so connected to you all, and thank you for sharing the stories.
Thank you, Katerina. I think I'm going to, if it's okay, I'm going to defer to Pujari because Babaji made him a Pujari. Pujari, are you willing to show? I'll highlight you and you can show the job, and you can tell us how fast we're supposed to do it, because I don't know.
I don't have a mala on, so I think better somebody with a mala do it. It is, I can tell you, Katerina, you do not use your index finger. You take your thumb.
There.
Ramloti can show it.
Yes, like this, yeah.
This, yeah. Or maybe better Ramlotha, you take, or Ramloti, you take over, you show it.
Anybody can show, yeah. And
yeah, you don't use your index finger. Yeah, you take it between your thumb and the other two fingers, and you move it with your second finger. You push it over and over and over.
Okay.
And Ramlotha is showing, and it doesn't matter. You can do it fast. If you ask Babaji, yes, do it fast, and you can do it mentally. Om Namah Shivaya, 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 Om Namah Shivaya. And if it becomes completely quiet in the mind, that's also beautiful. Then it goes in a very silent way. You just watch the Om Namah Shivaya pass by, in the sense that you're not even doing anything. You just move the mala and you're in a devotional space with Om Namah Shivaya moving you. It's the best that you don't do it, but the mala is doing you. The Om Namah Shivaya is doing you. That's where we have to end up.
Okay.
But we start by, looks like I am doing it, but ultimately we are doing nothing. The mala or the mantra is doing us. That is the technique.
Okay, thank you so much.
And at the Guru,
And we start where the threads meet, right? We start from there and we end over there, right?
and then
Yeah, good. That's the guru beat, or that's Babaji. You don't cross over that beat.
Yeah.
You touch it and then you go back. And you, when you come
turn
to
it.
you turn the mala all the time. Can you show that, Ramloti?
yeah, pretty well here. There's the Guru bead.
Right, that's the guru beat. You don't cross that, you go back. You change and then you go the other direction. And again, you do 108 times and then you change the direction. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Raghu
Also-
has a nice story about it. I want to share. Raghu made a mala without the guru beat. He thought, well, that obstacle in the middle somewhere. He had a mala made without the guru beat, not even knowing that that was the guru beat. So he just, it's more easy to just go around and around. Very lovely thing. But then he realized, oh, it's a guru beat. No, then it has to be there. Okay, I will adjust.
I love
Thank you.
Pujari, how you said, then did you say then you could just touch the Guru bead and turn around?
Yeah, you touch the guru beat, because that happens with me naturally. You touch it and oh, that's the wake-up call to go back. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you touch the feet of the guru. I have some nice stories about the feet of the guru, but in some other moment. Beautiful to be together.
Yeah.
Also, I saw another question about Babaji's routine. What was Babaji's routine? I think, well, Hiraman is somebody who can probably from heart explain Babaji's routine if you want to make 5 minutes time for that. What was Babaji's routine in the ashram? I saw a question passing, but I'm sure Hiraman, he can explain it in a very beautiful way. You want to make 5 minutes for that, Hiraman?
Sure. Well, I guess if we just started from the morning fire or the morning bath, Baba usually bathed about 3:15 or so, and Nan Singh would make the morning havan, and Babaji would come out and do the havan. Really beautiful time, wonderful time of day. Usually that was around 4-ish, and then he would give us chandan at the havan then. And in the early days, Babaji didn't give chandan to everybody until later in the day, but then he started to do it from his room. And then after that, sometimes we'd sit for a while, or sometimes I would sit outside, and he would be back in his room. And then as it got light, Baba would come out, and then I would go off to work, so I wouldn't see that part of the rest of the day, but Babaji would go into so probably you could fill that in better, because I never really went to RT ever in the morning.
Shall I do part? Yeah.
Yeah.
In my remembrance, it was Baba, we first went to Chandan in the early morning, and then Baba came out to do the fire ritual, which was magical, what you described before, to hear the river and the birds wake up. It was the most divine moments with Babaji for me was also that time, Chandan and the little Havan. That was another loka. And from there, of course, I went to the Pujari to do the temple, and we did immediately Aarti. After that, that was about 6 o'clock, 6:15. That's Aarti time. Then we had a cup of tea or some breakfast, very small at that time, and just a biscuit and a cup of tea. Then we would, after Arti, where Babaji didn't come out to Arti, he would be on his terrace or be on his own or be with Sastriji or with somebody. Then we would go back to Babaji's darshan. He would sit outside of his kutir on this big place, and we would all come. Sometimes I would sing a song, or we would sing, other people would do something. The Ganas were around. You see those pictures with Karku and Raghu standing around Babaji. And we would just sit and he would just talk with us or do something, just have darshan, and then he would send us off to work. So everybody would go to their destined work, and slowly Babaji would mostly walk down to the, at that time in 83, 82, he would go down to Fakirabad, where there was building going on, and we would work there in the garden, and also on the other side of the river, where we were still making the platform in front of and behind the temples to make the garden there. That was also a big job going on. So Babaji would go to both sides. He would go to the Gufa side and he would be in the company back until lunchtime. And then we went all back for lunchtime around 1 o'clock. And then Babaji would hang on his wall close to his kutir up the stairs. And there he would see the postman and some other Indian people, and Sastriji would be around, and sometimes he would call somebody. One nice story I can share in this moment, when one moment he called me over when he was lying on the wall just after Prasad, and then I was standing there. He said, he asked me, what is your name? And I said, well, Pujari. He said, no, what is your name? I said, Gerard. No, what is your name? And I mentioned another name, but from my childhood. But no, it was again without words he was doing this. And he, no, that's not. And then he said, what is your name? And then he blanked. And then I blanked. And then I got his eyes. He said, yes, that's it. There is no name. We have name and for, but there is no name. Ultimately, he pushed me to the point where I completely blanked and catched his eyes and understood there is no name. There's nobody here. It is, but anyway, from that moment, Baba would go down to his kutir, rest a little bit. Sometimes Sastriji would go there. He was often in the end having a guard in front of his door. We would take a rest for some time. The devotees would go to our room, do our laundry or sit in our room. And then about 3 o'clock, we would go back to our work again, either in the work with the stones or on whatever project we had. And Babaji would again roam around and be here or there, or he would go for a walk in the mountain and be with the villagers or go to a tea shop. Very easy, he would go around. And again, the beauty with Baba was such a magical, natural mirror without any, a mirror hasn't made any effort. With Baba, you could feel the same. He didn't have to do any effort. It was effortless how he moved through life and mirroring everything and everybody, knowing everything and everybody. That was such a supreme beauty to observe all the time, how effortless he would be mirroring whatever was in front of him, an animal, a devotee, looked deep through everything. And that's how he moved through the ashram, loving people, plugging people in, sending people away, the whole scala of possibilities of human relationships went through. And then he would go for his bath in the early days in the river, in the last year more in his room. He had also a bathroom, and then he would take his bath there with the Ganas around, which I was not a Gana. I had my other duty with Pujari and other things. But and then after the bath, we would go for the Arti at about 6:30, 7 o'clock Arti time. And then Baba would come out to be with us all in the Kirtan hall and sit on his asan and be present while we were singing at the Hriday Kandi mostly. At the halfway the Arti would come in, and then we would sing the Hriday Kandi and then some other bhajans. And then at the end, of course, Hari Govind came up with the yogis, and he took over the harmonium and started to play beautiful bhajans. And sometimes Babaji stopped everything and he had somebody sing a song or put a crazy hat on or tell a story. It was theater every day. Baba was Shakespeare ultimate. He would play every evening was satire, the most beautiful theater went on, and we just never want to leave. And then in the evening, Baba would retire around 9:30, go down to his room, and then his own magic started from there. Sometimes he would call people, sometimes he would just walk on his terrace. In the middle of the night, I've heard stories that a panther came to his tree many times and was like his friend, who was jumping on the tree and jumped down.
I saw that. I saw that panther.
Yeah. Oh wow.
I saw it for real.
That's why I say that's the mystery, and the magic happened also in the night. Like Hiraman told, you sit on the night on Baba's thing. I had experiences, yeah, with Raghuveer sleeping on the roof, and Baba would just come out and we would give darshan like that. Baba was all the time busy with us. Incredible, beautiful. But he had no, but the question was the routine. I did my best to explain the routine. And I better stop here, because then it's a mystery. It's a miracle.
There is a question on the chat, maybe related to that. There is a picture of Babaji in a swing chair and looking so happy. Was he used to be in a blissful state at that time?
Well, he was always in the state that different people would perceive it differently. You know, I mean, he was always Babaji and always just fully there. You know, to be with someone who's fully there all the time, and not just there with you, but there with everything and everyone, and not just us that were there at the temple, but be there with everyone everywhere all the time. You know, there were times where Babaji was with me, and at the same time he was physically with someone else. You know, he was not just, you know, they were thinking of him, or I was thinking of him, but actually physically with us at the same time. So there was just no limitations to Baba. Anywhere that you could perceive to be or be, Babaji was already there, and way ahead of anything that we could come up with.
Is
And
there
I
one
think,
other question about his likeness on the food or fruit? Which was his favorite?
well, when I first met Babaji, he was Falhari. He didn't really eat very much. He didn't, you know, he would, you know, sometimes take a bite of prasad, or he did like chocolate. But he didn't eat at lunchtime. He would eat a little bit at night, and Nan Singh would make a meal for him, and Nan Singh would always make, you know, quite a bit, and then we would share, we called it Mahaprasad, and we'd share what was left, which was pretty much the whole meal every time. And then as more people came, Babaji kind of, you know, inhabited his body a little bit more, you know, like he took on a different density. And so that was just, you know, the more, when he was around people who went to Vrindavan, he would just swell up, because thousands of people would come and just pranam to him during the day, and he literally would just swell up. And he took on that.
Hey, thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you. It's always the best treat to see all the devotees of Babaji. So thank you, everyone.
I have a story with the food, very quick and nice.
Yeah.
When I was there in the Italian restaurant in December, and we were told, Filippo was the boss of the restaurant. Anyway, we were told that Baba liked to have some fresh tomatoes. So when we saw him coming down from the ashram, crossing the river, we used to prepare this plate of sliced fresh tomatoes, and he used to sit on the wall and eat these tomatoes. And then I noticed that he kept turning, and he was spitting all the seeds. He was spitting all the seeds between the restaurant and the gufa in that area. Or sometimes he used to get up and with his plate and go and spit all the seeds around. So then he sent me, Filippo and Paolo went back to Italy, and in the beginning of January, he sent everybody away. He traveled to Bombay with a group of people. He sent me alone in India for 2 months. And then he said, you come back here 1st of April. So he came back 1st of April, and we all went up to the ashram, and Babaji said, so who wants to do the restaurants? And he looked at me, the Italian restaurant. So I raised my hands and he said, okay. So the next day Baba comes and he brings me and he shows me, and there were all the little tomato plants were coming out where he had spitted the seeds. So this was a thing of Baba that that it was incredible, because he was thinking of everything. In the most small details, nothing was too small for him or too big. It was that story touched me a lot. He said, we are so careless. I am so careless most of the time in my life. And instead he was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
We would bring,
It's really,
we would bring prasad to him, and it would be carefully packed up in the shop with a little rubber band on a little plastic bag. He would take every rubber band and put it on his little finger here, and then call up Raghu, who was running the shop, and he'd give him all the rubber bands so that he could reuse them in the shop again. Go ahead, Hiraman.
Yeah.
oh, I was just going to say, what Ramlotha was saying about how nothing was too big or too small, and how it was all kind of in the same to him in a way, like there was nothing that escaped his notice, and nothing that within us that he couldn't give attention to, whether it was something that we might perceive as very small or unimportant, but he made everything and all of us important. And just with such love. And as another part of his routine wasn't just like our routines. His routine was like 24 hours a day, like I would sit on the roof, and some nights, like so many lights would come into his room. And one time I asked him the next morning after the oven, I said, what, who are all those lights, Baba? And he said, I have conference. And, that was, everything was just, he moved with such grace, and it was, indescribable to be around him.
That's lovely. Thank you.
I think we should use the present of the verb.
Yeah.
Yes, very nice.
He is here and now.
Yeah.
And he's always working 24/7 with us.
He always is.
Thank you all so much. And we'll all be together again next week. And like I said, Loknath and Sandra Ray, but other people may join into this beautiful satsang is what I remember so beautifully, how we remember so many stories in our hearts, and just that feeling of immense love. So grateful, and it's ever present. I feel it moment to moment here. And when it's not here, I pray. I say, Baba, Mother, please help me let go of what I'm mentating on, so I'm not feeling that. And then I feel the arms just go around me, and it's like every moment available, and it's what makes everything possible. So thank you all for making it possible. I love you all.
Thank
We
you.
love you too.
Ciao, Nagini. It was so wonderful to see you.
Yeah.
Thank
wonderful
you.
to see you.
There is one more question in the chat
What is that?
from Umesh. It said he wants to know how did Babaji introduce himself to the people in the Himalayan region?
Well, I can give you a really quick, small story. I think Ramloti last week was talking about the article that Urmila wrote in the Yoga Journal. And oftentimes people would ask Babaji, you know, are you the Babaji? And my favorite response that I ever heard from him was, I'm only a stone. You know, and it was on the terrace, and you look out and there's a million stones on the river. And Babaji said, I'm only a stone. And that just has always stuck with me.
Hiraman, did he speak English to you, or I mean, how did you communicate with him?
He spoke English when he wanted to, and I learned very poorly Hindi. But most of the time when I would be kind of, I think Ramlotha might have mentioned this just last week too, that sometimes you'd be phrasing a question and putting it into Hindi to ask him, and then before you could utter a sentence, he'd just turn and answer you. So, and he understood, he understands everything, you know, so, and I'd hear him sometimes use phrases that were just, you know, really so precise in all different languages, you know, so his communication was just straightforward.
Thank you, Hiraman. This is Amish. Actually, I asked this question. As I mentioned in the chat, I recently got connected to Babaji through internet. I just saw his picture and felt connected, and I was just surfing today on the Facebook and clicked on the link, and this call was going on, so I joined the call. And so I was hearing all of you. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I was just curious because I read somewhere that he came, nobody knew like from where he came, and it was very short span of time that he lived with us, and then he left his body with Mahasamadhi. So I was just curious to know, like, because you guys, as you guys shared your stories, I got the sense that you were very close to him. So I just wanted to know about that. That's all. Thank you.
So Umesh, Umesh, there's so many stories. If you go to YouTube on Ramloti Wood YouTube channel, or if you check in with the ashram, we have so many books and stories. I mean, they go on and on and on, the stories. But the story of him going up to Mount Kailash with a few people and sitting there for 40 days and 40 nights at Navaratri time, I think it was, where many people couldn't believe this young being was the old Baba they were expecting. So stay in touch and you'll get more and more and more. There's many.
Sure. Sure. Thank you so much.
Yes, great, Umesh. Look forward. babajiashram.org.
And I put the website in the chat.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you so much.
Somebody else want to say anything more?
I think just remember that Babaji's an eternal being, and he told me once he had 28 bodies, and
wow.
So you know, this transition is not a, you know, it's like Ramlotha was saying, it's an is, not was. And bodies come and go. He appeared to me as all through my childhood in a whole different, in an older form body. So, and he's probably in a different body now. So the bodies they just, you know, he's not a body.
He's in our heart. It's our heart.
Yeah, I have a little addition to that, to keep him alive. That is like the most important part for all of us, old and new devotees, of course, to live with Baba every second. And it is his padukas and Baba's feet were like the divine of all these bodies. You could every day in Hirakan or not in Hirakan, you can put all your beauty and sorrow at his feet or at a picture from Babaji to communicate and talk with him, to keep him alive every second. to really, this me and mine is to be given up to him. But it's difficult to give it up in one time. But moment by moment, second by second, hour by hour, if we get in whatever personal thing, to put it at his feet, it worked perfectly in Hirakan. Whenever I had any issue, I could go to Babaji, put it at his feet physically, and I could walk on in another dimension, another state. A little story I still want to share with you is that when I came the second time to Baba with my broken, not broken mandolin or instrument, I made for him some wooden clocks, beautiful Dutch wooden clocks, these yellow things. I painted them very beautiful and I wrote on it, Satya Saralata Prem, truth, simplicity and love in both the languages, Hindi and in English. And these beautiful wooden clocks I gave to Babaji because I felt with the prayer, please Baba, learn me to walk in truth, simplicity and love. And he accepted them, put his feet inside as far as they could. He couldn't put them in completely. They were a little bit too tight, but lovingly accepted these clocks and they went to his, not his kutir, but the next door, his bigger room. And much later, much later, I didn't see them around anymore. Much later, when I built up the ashram in Holland and we had this beautiful place and we made a Babaji room, we needed, I thought, oh, we need padukas for there. And then Vimla was there. I met her in Hirakan that time. And he said, oh, Pujari, I'm so happy that this Dutch ashram is coming to ground, but probably you will need some padukas there. I said, yeah, of course. I was just thinking of it. He said, you come to my house in Delhi. I have padukas from Babaji for you. Baba was already in Samadhi, but she had Babaji's padukas. I was very happy. Said, we have some really padukas where Babaji walked in. I went with her to her puja room down in the basement of Green Park, J5. And there she has her room. And what I saw, the beautiful Baba padukas, and next to it were my Dutch clocks. So Baba gave her my wooden shoes, and I got the wooden shoes that she worshipped in her life. It was such, the magic of Baba is beyond time.
Oh my goodness.
It is unbelievable how all these things fit together. But the message is still for me, every moment, just, you know, do it mentally, emotionally, just everything is at his feet. We have to live like he's all around. The only thing we perceive is Baba. Everything we let go of this me and mine story. And Baba is in that also. He is that beautiful mirror of that me and mine and helps us to go beyond. And that is padukas, or his picture is a great help to stimulate us to surrender moment by moment by moment. And that's for an old and new devotee the same, one-on-one. Hiraman, thank you for the depth of your insights with Babaji. Really inspiring. Beautiful brother.
I invite all of you to get on each week when we have our next week will be Sandra and Loknath. The following week will be Sundar Singh and Joanne from Switzerland. So we're trying to go around the world. Those two will be at the same time. So, but everyone here and stepping in once in a while is wonderful.
Dhanyavad Ramloti.
But yes, thank you.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My love. Bye, Ramloti. Bye, everyone.
Very
Nice
good
to see
sharing.
you,
Thank
brother.
you.
Nice to see you.
Lovely to see you all.
Love to see you.
Oh,
Ciao.
Nagini, dance. There.
Just as I leave, I now have to run out of the door and go to work. So while this satsang's been going on, I took my shower and did the puja, and but I left the volume up so I could hear you all. So you all came to Aarti in Australia this morning. Thank you so much for making the yatra.
Thank you. Bye-bye.